I'm looking for an everyday camera that anyone can use for under $600. It must have 4K, as everyone's cell phone does, lens or sensor stabilization, and be somewhat pocketable. The cameras in this category basically fit that criteria. I did not have a Sony RX in this comparison simply because it did not meet that requirement, and Canon of course does not have 4K. Olympus TG-5 is weather and dust-proof camera that has built-in GPS, tons of slow motion modes with the ability to add on lens attachments. Plus, it shoots underwater. The GX85 that features the ability to have interchangeable lenses and flip down screen with a 4/3 sensor and 5-axis stabilization. The LX10 that sports a 1.4 Lumix lens with a stabilization and a flippy screen and features 120 frames per second slow motion. The oldest of the group, the Lx100, has a 4/3 sensor with a 1.7 Lumix lens with stabilization and electronic viewfinder. The TG5 is the most pocketable in the group, as it is lint and dust proof and fits nicely into a pair of denim pants. For comparison, I was able to use an old TS30 that has far less features. At 8.8 ounces, the Olympus was able to pack generations of technology in a package that was just a bit bigger. A feature I really liked is the ability to charge the TG5 using a USB charger. That is very handy, especially if you travel. The battery is rated for about 340 shots, and that's about what I got. I had fun with the slow motion effects. Even though you can shoot at higher frame rates than 120 frames per second, the camera reduces the resolution. At 480 frames per second, you are basically shooting with a 2002 Nokia cell phone. 240 frames per second is better, but not if you need to match 4K. Slow motion, for the record, does not record audio and can only record for about 20 seconds. Image stabilization and slow motion cannot be used simultaneously. The 4K video is soft and grainy. The camera uses a variable bitrate topping out at 103 megabytes per second. This video is only 93 megabytes per second. Stabilization is almost non-existent in 4K mode. 4K mode also eats battery life, turning a battery with 2 bars into red with no warning. Happened to me twice. I wish the TG5 had the same flip screen that its lower cousin does, the TG870. Flip screens help when shooting underwater and just in general provide more options to the operator. It was hard to see if the camera was still recording video, as it stopped slow motion after 20 seconds. The record indicator on the screen is too small. Slow motion and underwater color correction cannot be used simultaneously. Tg5 Raw Photos cannot be viewed or edited using Photoshop or Lightroom. As of this video, you must download the free Olympus Photo Viewer and convert the raw photos to TIFF or JPEG. The TG5 also features a removable front panel, which you can add lens attachments to it. It's pretty simple. Just hit the unlock and twist, and there you have it. The camera only has a mount for a strap on one side. Olympus wants your TG5 to dangle and not hang. The menu system on the TG5 is disorganized. It is hard to find stuff when compared to the Lumix menu system. It really didn't have much to do with the touchscreen because this camera does not have touchscreen. It was just hard to find stuff. For example, I tried to set the clock to a 12-hour mode rather than a 24-hour mode, or change Celsius to Fahrenheit. I was unable to find those features, and the camera does not come with any instruction manual, just a big getting started guide. This camera has some outdoor action measuring tools such as full-time GPS that can track even when the camera is off by setting the top switch to log. Even with that off, the camera will record the temperature, atmospheric pressure, and altitude. The full-time electric compass can be turned on even when the camera is off. However, these are all battery-eating features. The shooting options are almost endless on this camera, and going through them is painless, unlike the settings menu. With one click of the button, I can make changes like ISO, resolution, and shooting style. This camera also features scene options like sports and landscape. The microscope dial setting is perhaps my favorite feature of this camera. It produces professional macro results. See for yourself. Panasonic's GX85 is the biggest camera in the group and the only one to feature a removable lens. It failed at being pocketable. It is also significantly heavier than the other cameras in this group. The GX85 option to remove the lens gave me an idea to try out an EOS Micro Four Thirds adapter. I picked up a Zhongyi Lens Turbo 2, slapped on a Canon Nifty 50, and tried it out. Of course, the aperture cannot be changed and the focus is 100% manual, but let the fun begin. However, the chromatic aberration proved too much for my eyes. GX85 has the best stabilization of all cameras in this group, combining IBIS, which is in-body image stabilization, with lens stabilization. The large 4/3 sensor produces a crisp, clean image. With touch focus, this camera makes it easy to get great pro-looking video footage. I like that it has an available flash port along with a built-in flash. Perfect place to mount a microphone, but alas, it has no built-in mic port. Something I can understand from the other cameras due to their size, unforgivable in this one. The Lx100 and the GX85 share the same battery. The G85 lacks any kind of slow motion above 60p 1080 HD, which by now every camera should include. The camera didn't hold well in my hand and it kept shifting top, side, forward, down. I can't imagine if I put a heavier lens on it. Good thing this camera has great image stabilization to make up for the poor weight balance. Although I'm not a big fan of the fold-out screen on the GX85, it is better than nothing. If only it had a flip-up or full articulating screen like the G85. If only it had 120 frames per second slow motion like the LX10. If only it had a microphone port. Who is this camera really for? For travel, you're better off with the LX10 or LX100. For more serious video, the extra 300 gets you the G85 with a mic port, full articulating screen, more function buttons, plus better balance and grip. If you like this form factor, I think you're better off going with the more expensive Sony 6000 series. Nothing on this camera stands out or impresses me. The LX10 is a camera I have been looking forward to the most out of all the cameras in this group. I went in knowing I would love this camera based on specs alone. It's small, it has touchscreen, 4K, slow motion, flip-up lens, lens ring control, built-in flash. What's not to love? Every checkbox? Yes, please. The first thing everybody said, who I handed the LX10 to, is, it's slippery, I don't want to drop it. The next thing they said is it felt expensive. It just felt well built. Like the GX85, reviewing pictures feels current, like your phone or tablet, but you can still use the dial to speed through photos to get to the one you want. Just like the Lx100 and the Tg5, getting to the battery and SD card is a no-go if you use a tripod or any kind of adapter. With the Lx10 and the Tg5, you will most likely be swapping batteries before SD cards though. If you're going to record in 4K, you will need a Class 3 SD card. I recommend the SanDisk Extreme. The LX10 has the ability to charge over USB. I could charge this thing in my car, like the other cameras in this review, except for the Lx100. Excellent feature. The LX10 has a wonderful flippy selfie screen with built-in selfie software that you can shut off if you care, but the shutter timer with on-screen display is very helpful for group shots, and it has a facial slimming feature that's gimmicky at best. The slow motion shuts off stabilization like in the Tg5, but autofocus is also turned off. This can lead to missed opportunities with blurry action footage. The 1.4 lens with the 1-inch chip makes a nice dual, besting the Tg5 ability to shoot in low light. Unlike the Lx100, which uses optical stabilization, the Lx10 is a mechanical in-body stabilization. When compared to the lens dial on the Lx100, the Lx10 dial kept nudging on me, or in other words, accidentally changing my settings, like zoom, so I set it to nothing. I did not miss having an electronic viewfinder, even on sunny days. The touchscreen is great, but because of my hands, I also had too many accidental touches. This would cause the focus point to move, so there goes touch focus. The weight of the LX10 is just perfect, and it passes the pocket test with ease. The menu system falls in line with the rest of the Lumix lineup. Easy to navigate with clear explanations above. Touch works alongside the dials for speedy navigation. The ability to reprogram function and dials on this camera is very helpful, as Panasonic engineers don't shoot like I do. After testing the LX10, I think it is a wonderful camera that is just a bit too small for my hands. The Panasonic Lx100 is the best camera you have never heard of. It appeared almost 3 years ago. The idea was to take a compact body, stuff a big 4/3 chip inside, and give it a fast lens that's too small for the chip. So instead of 16 megabyte stills, it only produces 12.7. Luckily, I'm not scared off by numbers. It's not jeans pocketable and a pain to take out of a pair of cargo shorts, but a nice jacket pocket will do. Stabilization is not GX85 level, but light years ahead of the Tg5. Well, what other standout features does it have? Flash is an afterthought. Movable screen, nope. Touch screen, you're kidding. Even the video features are all afterthoughts. By all accounts, I should hate this camera, but I don't. It was my favorite camera to shoot with and the one I grabbed the most out of the four. Having manual aperture control on the lens and a shutter dial changes how you shoot. When you're buying the Lx100, you're buying it for the giant chip and the incredible lens. Tack sharp at 1.7 makes this lens one of the best. The dial layout is perfect, except for this really bad located button between the exposure and compensation and shutter dial. The IA button, otherwise known as the intelligent auto button. Panasonic's way of making photography easy. You can change the button from press to press and hold. This helps accidentally hitting it, as the LX has limited assignable function buttons. The Lx100 has no built-in flash. If you think you will need flash, you need to carry it with you. This camera has no built-in lens cap. It comes with a removable one. You can, however, screw on filters as you will need it anyway. There are no built-in ND filters. None of the cameras in this group have built-in ND filter. The weight and balancing in my hand is perfect, and the grip gives you amazing one-handed bravado. Even though it is not a touchscreen, jumping around the menu system is a breeze. The continuous autofocus in video mode with this camera exhibits the same hunt properties that all Lumix cameras do. But I found the LX10 locks on faster than the GX85, the G85, and the LX10. With proper bokeh, the video looks better than the GX85. Face detection also seems to work better in this camera. Let's take a look at the ISO and noise, strictly shooting in JPEG mode, as this will be the format I will use the most. The Tg5 small sensor cannot compete with any of the cameras in this category. The Lx100 exhibits tons of noise, and the reduced megapixels show up in these tests. The Lx10 looks clean. The 1.4 lens is doing its thing. With a kit lens, the GX85 did worse than both of the LX cameras. With a $1,000 2.8 lens, it still could not best the LX cameras. I had to reduce the LX10 image. Still, when comparing the LXs, you can see the LX10 rendering engine produces noticeably better results. The 1.4 lens on the LX10 gave me extra shutter speed, 1/60th versus 1/80th. I decided to compare the LXs outside at ISO 1600. Again, the LX10 destroyed the Lx100. I was surprised so much, I decided to see if the Lx100 Jpeg Rendering engine was working properly. I shot a RAW plus JPEG image. When using Adobe Camera Raw to convert, you could see the camera actually does a better job. The Lx100 compared to the Tg5 was no contest. Not sure why the Tg5 decided to use a 2.3 f-stop. The GX85 produced more detail when compared to the LX10, but I like the LX10 picture better. Does throwing $1,000 at the GX85 make it better? Not that much. A tad sharper and a stop of extra light, but that's about it. The GX85 is just simply a camera that is just missing too many features. Like I said earlier, the Sony 6300 or the G85 are better choices for more money, but better choices. The Tg5 needs a bigger sensor. The menus need improvement. Keep the size and weight and you have a winner. But right now, it's a half-cooked duck. Is it better than a GoPro? I would say no. With more options for mounting, smaller in size, and just about the same picture quality, the GoPro 5 and high-end knockoffs are a better buy. The LX10 is a shooter's camera. Still shooter, that is. I love using it. The weight, the balance, the grip, the image quality suffers when under a microscope, but it could shoot in low light with a fast lens. I've taken tons of pictures, and I really don't notice much of the noise. It is missing a ton of features, but if I had to pick one camera, the Lx100 would be my choice out of this group. It just fits. The LX10 proved to be the best camera with the most features, the best image quality, and really well built. It just didn't fit my hand. I suggest you go out, test out an LX10. If it fits, that's the camera I would recommend. I hope you enjoyed this.